Welcome to another story written by Oracle 1. The Monsters in Disguise of the Crumbling Mansion. Chapter 1. The road ended long before the mansion came into view, dissolving into a narrow path of cracked stone swallowed by weeds that whispered against Arthur's legs as he walked. The air felt older here, heavier, as though it had been breathed too many times and never refreshed. Even the wind moved differently, dragging itself through the skeletal trees with a low, reluctant sigh. He had expected abandonment, silence, rot. What he had not expected was the sense of being awaited. The mansion stood beyond a rusted iron gate that hung open on one hinge, its other side half sunk into the earth. The structure loomed behind it, vast and crooked, its once grand facade peeling away in long strips like skin. Windows stared down from every level, dark and unblinking. Some were shattered, others reflected nothing at all. Arthur paused at the threshold of the gate. He checked the address again on the folded letter in his hand, the paper worn thin from repeated reading. It matched. The handwriting had been careful, deliberate. His uncle's, a man he barely remembered but who had left him everything. The mansion, the land, the silence. He stepped through the gate. It creaked behind him as though closing, though he had not touched it. The path to the front door was lined with statues that had long since eroded into featureless shapes. Their outlines were vaguely human, but their proportions were wrong. Limbs too long, torsos twisted slightly, heads tilted at unnatural angles. Moss had grown thick over them, giving the impression of figures trying to claw their way free from a green, suffocating skin. Arthur kept his eyes forward. The front door stood ajar. That, more than anything, unsettled him. The letter had made no mention of anyone else. No caretakers, no staff, no neighbors. The nearest town was miles away, its existence barely marked on any map. Still, the door waited open. He approached slowly, each step sounding too loud against the stone. The closer he came, the more the air changed. A smell seeped out from within, damp wood, dust, and something faintly sweet, like overripe fruit left too long in a closed room. Arthur placed his hand on the door. It was warm. He hesitated. Then he pushed it open. The hinges did not creak. They exhaled. Inside, the mansion swallowed the daylight. The entrance hall stretched upward into darkness, the ceiling lost in shadow. A grand staircase curved along the far wall, its banister carved with intricate patterns that seemed to shift the longer he looked at them. Portraits lined the walls, dozens of them, each framed in tarnished gold. Faces watched him. He could feel it. Arthur stepped inside, and the door closed behind him with a soft, deliberate click. He turned immediately, grasping the handle. It did not move. He pulled harder. Still nothing. The handle felt resistant, as though something on the other side held it in place. Arthur forced a breath through his teeth and released it. Old houses did that. Warped wood, misaligned frames. He turned back to the hall. The silence pressed in. It wasn't empty silence. It had texture. Wait. It seemed to listen. Arthur's footsteps echoed as he moved forward, the sound stretching too long, as if the room were larger than it appeared. His gaze flicked to the portraits lining the walls. Each one depicted a person. Not a family, not in the traditional sense. They varied in age, in style, in expression. Some wore old-fashioned clothing, others appeared more modern, but all of them shared one thing: their eyes. Every pair of painted eyes was directed slightly off-center, as though focused on something just beyond the viewer. Or someone. Arthur stopped in front of one. A woman in a dark dress stared outward, her expression calm, almost serene. But her eyes were wrong. Too wide, too bright. There was a depth in them that paint should not hold. He leaned closer. For a moment, he thought he saw them shift. He stepped back. The sensation of being watched intensified. Arthur turned away from the portraits and moved toward the staircase. The wood creaked beneath his weight, each step groaning like something waking from a long sleep. The banister felt smooth beneath his hand, worn by years of use, or something that resembled use. Halfway up, he stopped. There was a sound, soft, a footstep, not his own. It came from above. Arthur looked up into the darkness. "Hello?" he called. His voice sounded small. No response. Then, faintly, another step. Slow, measured, approaching. Arthur's chest tightened. He strained to see beyond the shadow, but the darkness seemed to thicken, swallowing any detail. "Is someone there?" Silence. Then, a figure appeared at the top of the stairs. It stood perfectly still. Arthur exhaled, relief flickering through him. A person. It had to be. A caretaker, perhaps. Someone who had remained behind. "Thank God," he said, his voice steadier now. "I didn't think anyone else." The figure began to descend. Step by step. Its movements were precise. Controlled. Too controlled. As it came closer, the dim light from below revealed more of it. A man. Tall. Thin. Dressed in a suit that looked decades out of date. His hair was neatly combed, his posture impeccable. But his face. Arthur frowned. There was something wrong with his face. Not immediately obvious. Not something he could name. Just wrong. The man stopped a few steps above him. They stared at each other. Up close, the wrongness became clearer. The features were arranged correctly. Eyes, nose, mouth. All where they should be. But they didn't seem to belong together. The eyes were too still. The mouth too fixed. The skin too smooth, stretched just slightly too tight across the bone beneath. "Good evening," the man said. His voice was polite, flat, as though he were repeating a phrase he had practiced many times without understanding its meaning. Arthur swallowed. I'm Arthur. I received a letter. This place, it was left to me." The man tilted his head. The movement was slow, deliberate. "Of course," he said. "You have arrived." Arthur nodded, unsure. "Yes. I didn't realize anyone else was here." A pause. The man's eyes did not blink. "We are always here." Arthur felt something cold settle in his stomach. "We?" The man smiled. The expression did not reach his eyes. "Residents," he said. "Caretakers. Guests." The words felt wrong, out of place, as though they had been chosen at random from a list. Arthur forced a small laugh. "Right. Well, that's good. I suppose. I wasn't expecting." "You will adjust," the man interrupted. The tone remained polite, but there was something beneath it now. Something firm, final. Arthur shifted his weight. "I'd like to look around," he said. "Get a sense of the place." The man stepped aside. "Of course." Arthur hesitated. Then he moved past him. As he did, he felt it. A subtle brush against his arm. The man's sleeve, or something beneath it. It was not the texture of fabric. It was soft, warm, and it moved. Arthur stiffened, but he did not turn. He continued up the stairs. The second floor stretched out into a long corridor lined with doors. Each one was slightly ajar, revealing slivers of darkness within. The air was thicker here. Heavier. The smell was stronger too. That same faint sweetness, now tinged with something metallic. Arthur glanced back. The man still stood on the staircase below, watching him. Unblinking. Arthur turned away quickly and stepped into the corridor. The floor creaked beneath him. The doors seemed to shift as he passed, their narrow openings widening just enough to suggest invitation. Or observation. He stopped at the first door. Pushed it open. A bedroom. Dust covered every surface, thick and undisturbed. The bed sagged in the middle, its sheets yellowed with age. A wardrobe stood against the far wall, its doors slightly open. Arthur stepped inside. The air felt wrong. He moved toward the wardrobe. Something inside shifted. A soft, wet sound. Arthur froze. Hello? No response. He reached out, pushed the wardrobe door open. It creaked slowly, revealing clothes, dozens of them, hanging neatly, swaying gently, as though something had just moved through them. Arthur stared. The swaying slowed, stopped. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Old house, he told himself again. Old wood, drafts, settling. He turned to leave, and caught sight of the mirror. It stood in the corner, tall and narrow, its surface clouded with age. Arthur's reflection stared back at him. But something was off. He stepped closer. The reflection did not move immediately. It lagged, just slightly. Arthur's breath hitched. He raised his hand. The reflection followed. A fraction too late. Arthur stumbled back. The reflection smiled. He did not. A sound echoed from the corridor. Footsteps. Multiple. Arthur turned toward the door. Shadows moved beneath the gap. Slow, measured, stopping just outside. The handle began to turn. Not from inside, from the other side. Arthur backed away, his heart pounding. The door creaked open, and several figures stood in the doorway. All of them smiling, all of them wrong, and every single one of them wore a face that almost looked human. Chapter 2. They stood too still. That was the first thing Arthur understood as the door opened wider, revealing them in full. Stillness, not of patience, not of restraint, but of something that had learned how to imitate the idea of waiting without ever truly understanding it. There were 5 of them. A woman at the front, her hair pinned neatly back, her dress untouched by dust. A boy no older than 10, his hands folded together as though posed for a photograph. An older man with a slight stoop, his face arranged into what might have been kindness if not for the tension beneath it. 2 others lingered behind, their forms partially obscured by the dim corridor light. All of them smiling, all of them watching him. Arthur forced himself to breathe. "Can I help you?" he asked, the words catching in his throat. The woman stepped forward. Her movement was smooth, but there was something off in the timing, like a sequence of motions stitched too carefully together. "You have begun exploring," she said. Her voice was gentle, but hollow. Arthur nodded slowly, his back inching toward the wall. "Yes. I didn't realize there were so many." "So many," the boy echoed. His voice was too deep for his size. It vibrated strangely, as though more than one tone spoke at once. Arthur's eyes flicked to him. The boy's smile widened, not naturally, too far. The skin at the corners of his mouth stretched thin. "We wondered when you would begin," the older man added. Arthur swallowed. "Begin what?" A pause settled over them. Then, as one, their heads tilted. The exact same angle. The exact same speed. "To see," they said. The words overlapped, not perfectly synchronized but close enough to feel wrong. Arthur's pulse hammered in his ears. "I've seen enough for now," he said quickly. "I think I'll just get some rest." Long trip. He took a step toward the door. The woman moved in front of him. Not fast, but sudden. There had been no space between them a moment ago, yet now she stood close enough that he could see the fine lines in her skin. Except, they weren't lines. They were seams. Faint, thin, running along her jaw, up behind her ears, disappearing into her hairline. Arthur's breath caught. "You must continue," she said softly. Her eyes did not blink. "Your uncle insisted." A cold weight dropped into Arthur's stomach. "My uncle?" he said. "He's dead." The boy giggled. The sound was wet. "He was," the boy said. Arthur's vision swam for a moment. The woman leaned closer. Arthur could smell her now. Not perfume, not decay, something in between, like meat left just long enough to change. "He prepared the house," she said. "He prepared us." Arthur shook his head, backing away until his shoulders pressed against the wall. "This doesn't make any sense." "It will," the older man said. "It always does," one of the figures behind him added. Arthur glanced toward the corridor. More shadows moved, more shapes gathering. "They're all coming," the boy whispered, his voice filled with something like anticipation. "They want to see you." Arthur's chest tightened. "I don't want that." A silence fell. Then the woman's smile faltered. Just slightly. Not fading, but tightening. "You do not understand," she said. Her voice changed. The softness remained, but something beneath it sharpened. "You are already part of it." Arthur shook his head again, harder this time. "No, I'm leaving." He pushed past her. This time, she did not stop him. But as he brushed against her, he felt it again. That movement beneath the skin. Not muscle. Not quite. Something slower. Sliding. He stumbled into the corridor. The air seemed thicker now, pressing against his face as he moved. The doors along the hallway were no longer merely ajar. They were open, every single one. Inside each room, figures stood. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, all facing the corridor. All watching him. Arthur's breath came faster. His steps quickened. The floorboards groaned beneath him, the sound stretching unnaturally long as if echoing from somewhere deeper than the house itself. "Stop," a voice called behind him. He didn't. "Arthur," another voice said. He froze. That voice. He turned slowly. At the far end of the corridor, between the figures, someone stepped forward. A man. Familiar. Arthur's stomach twisted. "No," he whispered. The man smiled. It was a real smile. Or at least, it looked like one. "Arthur," the man said again. "It's been a long time." "Uncle." Arthur's voice barely formed the word. The man's eyes softened. "Yes." Arthur's mind reeled. "You're dead." I saw the letter, the records." "Yes," his uncle said calmly. "I was." The figures around him shifted slightly, their attention tightening. Arthur took a step back. "This isn't real." "It is," his uncle said. "More real than anything you've known." Arthur shook his head. "No. This is some kind of trick." "Of course it is," his uncle replied. The answer came too easily. Arthur's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" His uncle took a step forward. The others parted for him. "Everything here is a disguise," he said. "A necessary one." Arthur's skin prickled. A disguise for what? His uncle's expression changed. Just slightly. The warmth drained, leaving something else behind. Something colder. "Come closer," he said. Arthur didn't move. "I'm not going anywhere near you." A flicker of something passed through his uncle's face. Disappointment. "Arthur," he said quietly, "you came here because you felt it." Arthur's mind raced. "Felt what?" "The pull," his uncle said. "The recognition." Arthur's breath hitched. Something deep inside him stirred. A memory. Not clear. Not whole. But there. The mansion. Not as it was now. But before. Laughter echoing through the halls. Voices. Faces. Watching. Always watching. Arthur staggered slightly. "No," he muttered. His uncle's gaze sharpened. "Yes," he said. "You remember." The figures around them leaned in. Not physically. But their attention did. It pressed against Arthur's mind like a weight. "You've always been part of this place," his uncle continued. "You just forgot." Arthur's heart pounded. "That's not true." "It is." The certainty in his voice made Arthur's stomach twist. "You were never meant to stay away." Arthur shook his head, backing further down the corridor. "I grew up somewhere else. I had a life. A life we gave you," his uncle said. The words hit like a blow. Arthur froze. "What?" His uncle stepped closer. "You needed time," he said. "To mature. To understand." Arthur's breathing became shallow. "No. Yes." The figures began to move. Slowly. Stepping out from the rooms. Filling the corridor. "You were always meant to come back," his uncle said. Arthur turned, panic surging through him. The staircase. He ran. The corridor seemed longer now. Stretched. The walls closing in slightly with each step. The figures did not chase him. They didn't need to. They simply watched. Arthur reached the stairs and stumbled down them, nearly losing his footing. The entrance hall below felt darker than before, the shadows thicker, shifting. The front door. He rushed toward it, grabbing the handle, pulling. Nothing. He slammed his shoulder against it. Once, twice. It didn't move. Behind him, footsteps echoed down the stairs. Slow, measured. Arthur turned. They were coming. All of them. Filling the staircase. Filling the hall. Their smiles wider now. Less controlled. Skin pulling tighter. Stretching. Arthur backed away, his hands trembling. "What are you?" he shouted. His uncle stepped forward, now at the front. He tilted his head. "Just like the others. We told you," he said softly. "We are what lives beneath." Arthur's vision blurred. Beneath what? His uncle's smile widened. Everything. The air shifted. The walls seemed to breathe. Arthur's gaze flicked to the portraits lining the hall. The faces. They were different now. Not painted. Watching. Blinking. Moving. And then, one of them stepped out. Not from the frame, but through it. Its body peeled forward, stretching unnaturally as it emerged into the room. Arthur screamed. The others followed. From every wall. From every surface. From the floor itself. Shapes pushing through. Reality like something forcing its way out from underneath a thin layer of skin. Arthur stumbled back, his mind breaking under the sight. No, this isn't real." "It is," his uncle said. And then, his face slipped. Just for a moment. The skin shifted. The features misaligned. And beneath it, something vast. Something writhing. Something that did not fit inside a human shape. Arthur's breath stopped. His uncle's smile returned. "Yours will fit better," he said. The figures surged forward. And as they reached for him, Arthur felt something inside his own skin begin to move. Chapter 3. It began beneath his ribs. A slow, deliberate movement, like something waking after a long and patient sleep. Arthur doubled over as it shifted inside him, pressing outward, testing the boundaries of bone and flesh with quiet insistence. The figures did not rush him. They gathered. They circled. Their smiles widened as his body betrayed him. "You feel it now," his uncle said, stepping closer. Arthur staggered back, his hands clutching at his chest. His breath came in sharp, uneven bursts, each inhale scraping against something that no longer felt entirely human. "Get away from me," he gasped. His voice sounded wrong, thicker, layered, as though something else tried to speak with him. His uncle's expression softened again, almost gently. "There is nowhere to go," he said. "You are already opening." Arthur shook his head violently, backing toward the center of the hall. The walls seemed closer now, the ceiling lower, the air dense and suffocating. The mansion pressed inward, its silence no longer empty but crowded, filled with a low, collective awareness. "No," Arthur whispered. "No, this isn't real. I'm sick. I'm hallucinating." The movement beneath his skin answered him. Stronger this time. It slithered upward along his spine, branching outward beneath his shoulders, pressing against the inside of his throat. Arthur choked. His hands flew to his neck. He could feel it, not just movement, shape, something unfolding inside him, stretching into spaces that should not exist. The figures leaned closer, their bodies subtly shifting, their disguises thinning. "You were never meant to remain closed," the boy said, his voice trembling with excitement. Arthur looked at him, really looked. The boy's face twitched. Not like muscle, like fabric being adjusted over something struggling beneath. For a moment, the skin split along the cheek, just a thin line, and something darker pressed against it from within before settling back into place. Arthur stumbled backward. "What are you?" he rasped. The answer came from all of them. "Home." The word echoed through the hall, reverberating through the walls, the floor, the very air. Arthur's vision swam. Memories pressed at the edges of his mind. Not his. Not entirely. He saw the mansion, not as it stood now, but whole. Alive. Filled with people who smiled too widely, who spoke too precisely, who watched too closely. He saw himself among them. Smaller. Laughing. But the memory twisted. The laughter didn't belong to him. It came from beneath. From inside. Arthur screamed, clutching his head. No, no, stop. They are returning, his uncle said softly. Arthur looked up. Who? His uncle's eyes gleamed. You. The word struck deeper than anything else. Arthur froze. What? His uncle stepped closer, close enough that Arthur could see it clearly now. The seams. They ran across his uncle's face, down his neck, disappearing beneath his collar. Subtle. Precise. Like careful stitching. You left, his uncle said. A long time ago. Arthur shook his head weakly. I never. You did, his uncle interrupted. His voice was no longer flat. It carried something older now. Something vast. You peeled yourself away, he continued. A fragment. A curiosity. Something that wanted to see what it meant to be separate. Arthur's stomach twisted. No, he whispered. Yes. The figures around them began to shift again. Not just beneath the skin. Through it. Their forms elongated, their proportions bending. Their faces stretching as if the human shapes could no longer contain what was inside. You lived among them, his uncle said. You wore their shape. You learned their patterns. Arthur's hands trembled. I'm human, he said. The words felt weak, uncertain. His uncle smiled. You were pretending. Arthur's breath caught. The movement inside him surged. Suddenly, violently. His body convulsed as something pushed upward through his throat. He gagged, dropping to his knees as a wet, tearing sensation spread through his chest. His skin felt too tight. Too small. I can't, he choked. His uncle crouched in front of him. You can, he said gently. You've done it before. Arthur's vision fractured. Flashes of something deeper. Something endless. A vast, shifting mass beneath the world. Not bound by shape. Not bound by form. It moved through cracks in reality, pressing upward, searching for openings. The mansion. Not a building. A wound. A place where the surface had thinned. Arthur screamed as his fingers curled involuntarily, the bones shifting beneath his skin. His nails split, lengthening, darkening. His reflection flickered in the glass of a nearby portrait, his face stretching, his jaw unhinging slightly, his eyes widening beyond human limits. No, no, this isn't me. It is, his uncle said. Arthur's skin began to split. Not in ragged tears. In clean lines. Seams. Perfectly placed. Running along his arms, his chest, his face. Something beneath pressed outward. A different shape. A truer one. You built the disguise yourself, his uncle continued. You wanted to understand them from the inside. Arthur's thoughts shattered. Fragments of memory collided. He saw himself, not as a man, but as something vast, something formless, pressing into a human outline, molding it carefully, learning how to move, how to speak, how to be seen. He had practiced, failed, tried again, until the disguise held, until he forgot it was a disguise at all. I chose this? Arthur whispered. His voice was no longer singular. Multiple tones overlapped, slipping out of sync. Yes. His uncle reached out and placed a hand on Arthur's shoulder. The touch was no longer hidden. Arthur felt it clearly now. Not a hand. A cluster of shifting forms, pressing together to mimic one. You wanted to feel what it meant to be alone, his uncle said. Separate. Finite. Arthur's body shuddered. The seams widened. Darkness spilled from within, not liquid, not solid, but something that moved like both. It was always temporary, his uncle added. Arthur's mind clung to the last fragments of resistance. I don't want this, he said. The words sounded distant, fading. His uncle tilted his head. You already chose. The figures around them began to shed their disguises. Not all at once. Slowly. Their faces slipping, their bodies unfolding, revealing glimpses of what lay beneath, shifting masses, layered textures, eyes that formed and dissolved, limbs that bent in impossible directions before settling back into something almost human. Arthur watched, and something inside him recognized it. Not with fear, with familiarity. The movement within him synchronized with theirs. A rhythm, a pattern, a call. His body stopped resisting. The pain faded, replaced by something else. Relief. Arthur's head tilted. The same angle, the same motion. His breathing slowed, then stopped. He no longer needed it. His uncle smiled. "Welcome back," he said. Arthur stood, or something that had been Arthur. The human shape still clung to him, but it no longer fit quite right. It hung loosely, like clothing worn too long. He looked at his hands. Flexed them. The skin shifted, adjusted, perfected. A better disguise. More precise. More convincing. The others watched. Waiting. Expecting. Arthur turned his gaze toward the front door. He could feel beyond it now. The world outside. Full of shapes. Full of people. Full of empty disguises waiting to be worn. "You remember," his uncle said. Arthur nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. His voice was calm, controlled, perfectly human. But beneath it, something vast stirred. Hungry, patient. The mansion exhaled around them, its walls settling, its silence deepening once more. The portraits returned to stillness, their painted eyes fixed once again on nothing at all. Arthur stepped toward the door. This time, it opened easily. Cold air drifted in from outside, carrying the distant scent of the world beyond. He paused at the threshold. For just a moment, something faint lingered. A memory, a life, a name. Then it slipped away. Arthur smiled, and stepped out. Behind him, the door closed. Inside, the mansion waited. For the next one who would be called home. For more stories, like and subscribe.